What's up guys? Welcome to Cheesewood by Romandmitri. Today I want to show off these faux beams that I've been working on for weeks, and by the end of this video I'm going to show you the entire process of how to make one of these. So first, why don't you take a look. So behind me I still have some 2x4s that are not fully in place, but if I turn around this way we can start to see that the beams are here and they're looking really fucking sweet. How freaking awesome is that? These things are massive. This one's actually 9 by 11, 11 high, 11 and a quarter, and 9 wide. So that's pretty cool. This one here running along the wall is, I believe, 8 and a quarter tall, and it's about 4 inches deep from the outside, 3 inches deep from the inside. I did that for mounting reasons, and we just didn't want to take up too much space. If you look at it here from this angle, you can tell that it's flush to the wall, and the goal was just to make it look as if the drywall is covering up the rest of it. Honestly, I think they look fantastic, but it is a lot of work. Okay, so I have one that I haven't installed yet. It's meant to look like an old beam, but really it's a hollow construction. What you see here in every single detail, I've done it by hand, and I'm going to show you exactly how to get it done. But the concept is essentially, you gotta glue your boards together, then you gotta beat the shit out of them with an axe. Then you grind them down to even those axe marks out, because even though we'll hit it quite a lot, back in the old days, they didn't end up with so many axe marks. Then we'll sand it down to really make it smooth, and then we'll fuck it up again. And we'll do that a couple times, and that'll make it look really, really authentic. If we get lucky, we're gonna get a blowout where it's gonna look like a big chip, but don't worry, everything's fixable, and I think it makes it look a lot more authentic. For example, this piece here is, you can see this giant gouge that's kind of been taken out of it. Simply, we just glue it and fix it up and it looks pretty sweet. Here I'm using early American stain, then some matte finish clear coat, and a little bit of sanding just to get it looking nice in the cracks. Anyway, did I mention that it's Friday now? It's around 1:58 p.m. So what I'm gonna do next is go to the store, get some wood, and we'll take it from there. What's up guys? Okay, it's 2:37 p.m. on a Friday now, and I'm back from the store. I just got this massive piece of wood. Just so there's no confusion, the beams I showed you upstairs were all 12 feet long, and this entire place is 24 by 37 feet. So the ridge beam that you saw in the middle is like 36 feet long on the interior. I'm like 5'8.5", 5'9", and this is a 12-foot piece. Looks like it's out of frame, so it's pretty long. If we take a look upstairs, that stuff seems pretty small, because it's far away. Next, what we're gonna do for the purpose of science is figure out how much a single piece of wood weighs. I'm reading 169 on the dot on my scale, so 189.4. Well, that makes the math quite easy. That's a 20-foot piece of wood. And I've been using about 1.5 pieces per each of my beams. What does that add up to? That means each beam is about 30 pounds minus all the wood that I take away with the axe. I did want to build full beams for you guys, but for some reason when I got to the store, I bought one piece of wood, and on the way home I realized it's not enough to make a full beam. So what I'm actually going to do is cut it in half and do a 6-foot kind of a mantle for you guys. Anyway, safety first, not last. Guess I'm just gonna have to stay low. So, before I made this really silly decision to buy one piece of wood, I actually wanted to buy 2 pieces of wood to show you the difference of what the grain pattern can result in. Especially for pine. I think for pine, once you stain it, it becomes really high contrast, and sometimes those axe marks that I'm going to show you, they don't mix well with that grain pattern. So some of the beams I have are not like this, and some of them are. So here you can maybe see it, but there's a pretty aggressive grain pattern that you can see. Like it's light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. And as soon as I stain it, it's just gonna multiply the contrast. Stain and finish pattern is subjective, so maybe you're into that sort of thing. But for me, the early American stain that I'm gonna use, it's a bit busy. So what I think we're gonna do is actually start with one and then maybe finish with another. I don't know, we'll see. So anyway, here's my piece. Let's cut it in half. This is the DCS 391. I'm not sure if you noticed, but I put another plank of wood underneath this so that when I do cut this stuff, the piece on top just doesn't fly up and hit me in the face. It's not really related to this video, but this is a 1-inch piece, and when you set your saw depth, you don't want to just cut it at full depth like this. That's a little too much. What you want to do is have your teeth just protrude slightly past the wood piece that you're cutting. The teeth attack at the proper angle. This will also make sure that you don't cut that other wooden piece underneath that's holding everything together. Success. Okay, so let's just pretend this is a 12-foot piece because really that's what this video was supposed to be about. And when you get a 12-foot piece of one of these, it's gonna sit on the shelf for a while, and it's not always gonna be a piece that sat in the middle of the wood pile. As a result, as it sits, it's gonna shrink and warp and not be perfectly straight. This piece, if you look at it, is actually pretty good. But no matter how good it is, there's still little bumps there, and if we're gonna be gluing this side to anything else, we're gonna have a problem. So the number one thing we're gonna wanna do is make sure that this edge is straight. It doesn't matter how wide the piece is gonna end up, we still want a straight edge to measure from. Because if the piece is somewhat curved and you're trying to measure 6 inches, you're just gonna follow that curve. I got this DeWalt 6-foot level lying around, and I like to use it as a straight edge. It's the DWHT 42170, and it's actually 78 inches in length. I think it's pretty sweet because it's got magnets on the bottom, which stick to my horses. For sake of argument, let's see how we're doing. This piece is pretty good, but I can still see some sunshine. So I'm just gonna cut it. Say hello to one of my favorite accessories. It's a 102-inch track from DeWalt. And it's really gonna help us out. If you don't have a track saw, you're gonna have to figure something out. I'm sorry, that's gonna be up to you. Okay guys, so just so we're clear, on this channel, my goal is not to show you the cheapest possible way to do something. There's a ton of other channels that will show you how to do that. On this channel, my goal is to get you solid quality results. And once in a while, that means investing in a tool. And like I mentioned in my other videos, I've been collecting tools for 10 to 15 years. And every project means a new tool. So I suggest you do the same thing. Hopefully you got enough of this stuff lying around. And if you don't, you're just gonna have to get creative, but I believe in you. And now one of my favorite tools, the DCS 520, the cordless track saw from DeWalt. I remember during COVID, this was on back order and I had to wait for over a year, but well worth it. Now you're probably thinking it's gonna get really fucking dusty in here, and that's true, but that's because this garage is still under construction and I don't have my dust collector system installed yet. At the same time, for this project, it's gonna be very little dust, so I don't feel like hooking up the vacuum. Be easy. And as you'll see very soon, it's not like you can hook up a vacuum to an axe, so really I'm gonna have to clean up anyway. If you're curious, we're now looking at 3 p.m. or 2:58, and next let's figure out how big we want to make these cuts. And give or take 11 3/8, but there's a bit of a dank edge here, so let's just call it 11. So much for a 1x12 being 12 inches, but it's not like an inch ever made a difference. Don't slam your measuring tape. I'll make a video on that later. For the pieces you see upstairs, they were 5.5 inch wide by about 5 inches added to that piece of wood. Now, we can cut this on a 45-degree angle and do some sort of a joint, but I realized with this process that 45-degree angle is, first, it's too much work and it's very difficult to get all your edges glued together because this piece isn't perfectly flat. It might actually be a little warped. So if you start to try to line up 45-degree cuts together, you're gonna have a bad time. Also, it's gonna take a while. And ultimately, it won't make a difference. And if we did do the 45-degree cuts and glued everything successfully, there is a possibility that we can blow it out with an axe. And once we do that, potentially gluing a repair piece in place would be somewhat difficult. So let's just avoid that altogether. Again, you don't need 45-degree cuts. 90-degree cuts are gonna look just fine. Ah yes, another tool that I use quite often, the DCE 100. Get that dust right off, who cares? Check it out, that's a top piece. We're gonna cut this one to 6 inches. It's just, it's talking to me. It's saying, bruv, what are you doing? Don't be a bit of a mariachi. Don't play games with me. Just cut me to 6 inches. That's what I'm all about. That's what I want. It wants 6, it gets 6. And then we're just gonna make another 4 or 4.5, whatever I cut this to. Doesn't really matter. I don't need to measure it at this point because I could trace it, and I'm just marking the line on the outside. So when I put my track saw down, as long as I cut that line off and everything with it, we're gonna have a good time. Anyway, that's cutting. That should be the easy part. You should have figured that out on your own. So here's what we ended up with. We got this 6-incher here, and we got 2 of these 4.5-inch pieces that we'll use for the sides. So in theory, if I put those up, put this on top, this is what we expect our beam to look like. Or mantle, or you know, whatever we're gonna call it. So next step is gluing. This piece of wood is actually pretty clean, but if we had some sort of knots in it, we'd want to be conscious of those for how we glue it together. And that's really just a subjective, stylistic thing, but you know, take a look around, figure out what you want to see, and decide. This is my piece that's going to be on the inside face, and this other guy here, he's also going to be positioned like so. Next, I line them up with the edge. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the closer it is, the easier your life's gonna be. Mark off the side, and I'm not sure if you can see that. That black line's gonna show me exactly where I need to put my glue. But before we get into gluing, you gotta realize this piece is pretty hairy. Can I say that? And if you put glue on it, it's likely to just come right off. It's not as smooth as these edges that we just cut. So what I'm gonna do is actually sand it real quick. So another amazing tool to have, goes for around 100, 150 bucks, is the orbital sander. It's the DCW 210. I love this little guy. Right now I'm rocking 120 grit sandpaper, and I'm just gonna do a quick pass. I think 80 or whatever you have lying around is gonna be fine. Just get those hairs off and don't worry about it too much. Look at that. Now it's nice and smooth, and the black line or the marker line is still there, and obviously I got ahead of myself. I should have put the marker on after I did the sanding, but really doesn't matter. So this here is an indoor project. I use LePage wood glue from Home Depot. Again, I'm in Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. And it's just the Pro Carpenter's glue. I've been using this stuff for years. It's really the only glue that they have that comes in a big jug like that. You don't need anything specialty like Type-On 3 unless you're doing outdoor stuff. I also have a cup because I've been gluing on and off for a bunch of days now. And it's just a Tim Hortons cup cut in half that I keep my glue in, and I keep a little glove on top of it. Also, these are pretty sick. They're basically $1 a pair. Just be careful. Sometimes you get two left-handed ones, like pretty often for some reason. So just keep an eye on what you're buying if you're getting a handful. Anyway, I got glue here from yesterday. It looks still fresh, and I'm just gonna use my finger, and I don't care what you say. I really don't care what you say. I like to apply my glue in 2 passes. The first pass is just to get it on there and a little slippery and let the wood absorb it as you're applying it to the rest of the strip. Then I like to do a second thicker coat. And with this scenario, it's been working just fine to apply it to just the one working piece and not necessarily the other one. My floor is now covered in dust, so any wood glue that drips down, it's going to come off quite easily. If you're a little picky about your work area, then maybe lay down a tarp or whatever you think is appropriate, because you will get the drips. Okay, so now I got glue all over my finger and my watch. What do I do next? It's 3:16 p.m. Well, just pick up a little sawdust, rub it on your fingers, and it'll actually just come right off. So I got sawdust on my finger, and there. In about 2 seconds, it comes right off. Clean. It's magic. So, my piece of wood, just put it on top. Rub it back and forth a little bit. And in half an hour, this should be good to go. Gotcha. Okay, I'm just kidding. Honestly, you're gonna wanna invest in a bunch of clamps. But these clamps are sick, and these are the newer 300-pound variants that they call them. I actually like to start on the edge. I put the clamps about 1 foot apart. I find that to be more than enough. But if your bottom piece is warped, sometimes you do need more. So just be mindful. Here, it's a very simple example. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clamps on a 6-foot piece. That makes them 1 foot apart. The math checks out, right? I've put the other piece just on the edge there because of the weight, so this doesn't roll over. So now typically you wait like half an hour for this to dry, but I like to take a photo and say it's 3:19 now, and maybe wait up to an hour before I go ahead. Let me show you this up close, but there's a bunch of glue left over on the inside. The glue on the outside is quite drippy, and I really don't care about that because we're going to remove all of that with an axe. But the wood on the inside, or the glue on the inside, I like to keep it clean in case I need to do some repairs. And those repairs are going to be a lot easier if you get that glue off of there. So to get that glue off, I like to take a little bit of sawdust and sprinkle it on top, then come back about half hour later and get it off with a scraper. If you take it off now, it's just going to be a little bit too runny. Alright, jabronis, so normally I would wait, but I just realized it's not a 12-foot piece, it's a 6-foot piece. So I can just start gluing the other side now because I got enough clamps. But you guessed it, first we got to clean it up. That's gonna be pretty sweet. By the way, like I said, I love DeWalt, but I do use Milwaukee, and I think I mentioned in the other video that they make nice markers, and I wasn't lying. Like, I got these 4-packs of markers from Milwaukee lying around like literally everywhere. Maybe 3 or 4 packs are in this garage right now. These are awesome. DeWalt, if you're listening, why aren't you making these? Anyway, let's put some glue here. So here's my dirty glue finger. Here's some sawdust. And jazzy hands. So I'll be honest guys, I need to get some more of those DeWalt clamps, but these Bessie clamps are pretty sweet too. They're just a little bit heavy, and quite honestly, they're overkill. Not to be confused with underkill. No. We wouldn't want that. I also got these Bora clamps, which are also nice, but overkill. All right, so I was hanging out, minding my own business, waiting for this glue to dry, but it's only 3:39 now, and I realized, why don't I just start scraping the inside and film it with my phone? So I got my tool, and I realized this tool is it's kind of dirty. My tool's a little dirty, right? And some of these are quite big, so I'm just going to show you a real quick way to clean that without having to worry too much. Ta-da! The good old sander, the Orbital sander, the DCW 210. It's a perfect tool to clean this off. I don't know if you can see. Can you see from here? Check this out. Well, shit, that's not going as well as I planned because I'm not using that 180. But for the 120, it's not bad. So still a success. Use some sort of sandpaper and that comes off real nice. So now I wish I wasn't lazy and I could actually show you, but all I'm doing is kind of scraping both corners to get that glue out of there. And I'll show you right after a clip from the inside. It's just I gotta keep moving the camera around, but ooh, that looks good. Because it's not sometimes Coca-Cola, it's always Coca-Cola. They don't pay me for this, but I do love Coke and Tim Hortons and DeWalt and all that shit. Anyway, guys, it's 4:06, so it's been at least half hour since the first glue up, and actually at least half hour since the second glue up. So I think we're gonna call it enough and hope for the best. So let's get these clamps off and start talking about axes. Sick, the clamps have been removed. This side was glued later, so we're gonna be gentle with this one. Or you know what? We can start working on the actual top first. So, how do we wanna do this? Let me get my axes. How's that? Can you see? Sick. Okay, so this little guy right here, he's got a 3-inch blade. I got him for $65. It's an East Wing from actually Home Depot, I believe, aisle 14, or the tools aisle. So this guy was pretty sick. I started testing with him, but ultimately I decided that these axe marks, they were slightly too small. The beams I have in my yard from the previous barn that we took down here, they had axe marks quite bigger than that, and this one was round, whereas the ones on the beams and the timbers actually was pretty straight. Ultimately, this was no good. So I figured, you know what, let's see what Amazon has to offer. And I bought this weird brand DWFK-HT from Amazon. I think it was like $85. It's got a bigger blade. The blade on this one's almost 6 inches, and well, when comparing it to this guy, it's almost double. So I would say that's a pretty big difference, and I hope for the best, but ultimately I just wasn't getting the results that I liked, so this one here wasn't good enough. And that's when I began to realize I couldn't get a flat enough chopping angle to do the job that I wanted. And that's because these two axes are symmetrical, and that's not what we want. I came to realize that what we want is called the hewing axe, or hewing. Patrick, hewing? Hewing? It's called a hewing axe, and while this one here is a right-handed axe. You can see because this side is perfectly flat. So that way when I go to strike against a piece of wood, I can get as flat as I want. I'm right-handed and I like to hit it like this, so that goes in pretty even. You'll see that the blade here is actually pretty straight. It's not completely straight, but it's better than the other two. The length on this guy is 7.5 inches, so I'd say that's quite substantial. And it actually comes pretty sharp. This guy here cost me about $150 on Amazon. It was labeled old, rare, vintage Viking axe or something like that. And from the tracking information, I gathered that it came from deep Bulgaria. It wasn't a prime item, and it's something that took almost 2 months to arrive. So if you can find another one of these, good on you, I recommend it. Otherwise, there are other brands available, but those guys were about $400 to $500 Canadian. And I figured before I make that leap, I'll try one of these. And you know what? I've been pretty happy. So before we go to town on this thing, why don't we give it a weigh just so we see how much it weighs before and after the axe treatment. So right now I'm standing at 169.6. I did have a little bit of water during the intermissions. 182.8 holding this guy in my hand. So we're looking at 13.2 pounds for this piece. And if it was twice as long like the ones I have upstairs, we'd be looking at around 26 or so pounds. Okay, that's good to know. Guys, I'm so sorry. I almost forgot to introduce you to my friend. It's a 6-inch grinder from DeWalt, the DW756. Now I got this because I read online with the 6-inch grinder, you can get into tighter corners when you're trying to buff things out, for example. But in hindsight, I should have gotten the DW758, which would have been the 8-inch grinder. Anyway, I got a 6-inch little guy here. He's my friend. This axe is quite sharp, but I just want to show you that it looks really cool and sparks fly. Hopefully I don't set this place on fire. If I do, guys, safety first. I have a fire extinguisher right there. Oh, happy days. Okay, now I gotta clean this up. Okay, dudes, I think we're ready for some shit. Now, typically, if I'm doing this all day or, for an hour or so at a time, I'd wear my $1 gloves, like the ones that are covering my little glue cup. But since I'm only doing this for a few minutes, I'm not gonna be wearing those gloves. I really recommend you do wear them because I ended up getting a lot of calluses. The way I'm gonna approach this is basically just leave little marks here and then take big swings to take them all off. And I'm gonna kind of stagger them, maybe do a foot and a half at a time, then switch to this side, then switch back to this side. I'm gonna keep doing that. And once I'm done, I'm gonna have to flip the entire piece in the other direction and do it all again. That gives you pretty much even distribution of cuts. Now, it's gonna look really busy, but we're gonna come by with a wire brush wheel afterwards to flatten it down. You know what? Let's go to 60 frames per second. Really, guys, I think you can hit it anywhere you want. It doesn't matter. It's gonna look great no matter what. Art is subjective, right? That right right there, that's what I like. When you get deep enough that you just start to take out big chunks. Whew. All right, guys, I think that's pretty sweet. Let's switch back to 30 frames. Okay, so that was kind of the gist of it with the axe. I'm gonna show you a close-up, but basically, like I said, I staggered my marks and I cut in both directions in the end. 1, 2, 3 sides, flip over, 1, 2, 3 sides again. You might not have noticed, but I left the edges untouched. And that's because if you're actually gonna be making a beam that you're gonna try to like cut a hole out for and put into another beam, then it's a lot easier to simply keep that square shape. Otherwise, when you take off too much here, and then it's just gonna get difficult for you to plug them into each other. And really no one's gonna notice. I'll show you how to make that look rough enough that it still looks like it's real timber. One thing that you can do is actually come by and just cut off a little bit, maybe a 1/4 inch or so, and that'll actually make it look bigger, you know, kind of like trimming the bush. So with this little beveled edge, now it looks like this beam is so big that you were just touching the edge of the tree. So why don't we show you a close-up now? So like I was saying before, it's gonna look pretty rough to start, and well, that's perfectly fine. There's a lot of axe marks, and well, it doesn't really look like what it would look like back in the old days. It just looks kind of like a mess. I mean, maybe it is subjective. I think it looks pretty nice. But what we're gonna do next is just to remove all these pieces that are hanging off. Okay guys, I'd like to introduce you to my new friend, the Restorer. I first saw this on Dusty Lumber Co. Instagram channel. And honestly, this thing's great. I have 3 major heads that I use, but it's essentially like a 3-inch brush head, drum sander type of situation. I think Mastercraft or Porter Cable makes one as well. I think it's the same model, just rebranded. What do I know? So this thing on its own with maybe some sander heads is about 150 bucks, 200 bucks if I remember correctly. But then I got this $80 like stainless steel heavy duty drum. This thing is pretty gangster, and we're gonna use this guy next. Afterwards, we're gonna use this stainless steel wheel, but these are nice little bristles. And in the end, we're gonna use this guy. It's actually the thicker nylon brush, and that's just to get all the dust out so that we can apply the stain without having too much gunk. Unless you're into that sort of thing. Some of the beams I did like that just to make them darker. You can look up the tool, but the head just goes in like this. Okay, it's in, praise the Lord. So our goal here is literally just get rid of all of these like jaggedy edges that are sticking up, but also we're gonna even out some of those axe marks, because really we want an axe mark every 2, 3, or 4 inches. We don't want one every ½ an inch like I have right now. So essentially we're gonna smooth out the whole thing. And at the same time, this heavy steel brush is just gonna age the fuck out of this beam, make it look 100 years old in about a minute. By the way, I run it on max, which is, it goes 5 max. So max number, and I do press pretty hard sometimes, just if I feel like it. It really gets those nice grooves in there. And with this guy, just like with the axe, we're gonna wanna go in both directions because those little pieces of wood might come up one way and not the other. So we just wanna make sure we cover all angles. So next, anywhere that we have some glue, specifically where I didn't use the axe, we're gonna wanna take that off. So one approach is literally go in the same direction. But what I like to do is go perpendicular to the grain because that'll take it off quicker and it'll kind of give a blending texture between the two different pieces of wood. Make it a little more seamless. And we can do that literally anywhere we like. Who's gonna stop us? That's that for now with the heavy duty stainless steel brush. Let me show you a close-up. So I'm not sure if you can tell, but it's actually fairly dusty, but at the same time it's fairly smooth. Okay, so that's pretty sweet. It's starting to look prehistoric, or at least 100 years old. But you know, it's covered in dust, and we got to move on to the next step. So for my next trick, it's back to the DCW 210 orbital sander from DeWalt. The goal here is again to keep evening out those axe marks and only keep the ones that are really making this pop and look like it's supposed to. Again, it's all subjective, so do what you like. Okay guys, so I just went over this with the 80 grit, and as I was doing that, I've made a few decisions. So I really want to emphasize to you that this piece of pine has a lot of grain pattern, and I'll show you a close-up now that all that dust is off of it so you can see it for yourself. But as soon as I apply stain to it, it's really going to make it appear. So anywhere that I have these circles are going to overpower all of the nice texturing work that I've done, and I'm going to be upset about that. So if I keep this somewhat of a rough surface, it'll end up having a darker finish. And if it has a darker finish, then you won't be able to see those circles. You'll just see kind of the texture. But on the other hand, if I chose a different piece of wood that didn't have all these grain patterns, by the way, which is possible, I'd then be able to sand this smoother. And the smoother that I sand it, I can apply a lighter stain to it. Did that make any sense? So the smoother the finish, the lighter the stain will look, just naturally. Some of these beams I used 3 coats of stain, and some of them I used 1 coat of stain, but I left a lot of sawdust on it, so it got really gritty and naturally dark as a result. And some of them I tried to make as smooth as possible, and that came out really bright, but then I ended up seeing a lot of these circles. Moving forward, the hard step for you is going to be deciding which kind of stain you want to use, or maybe you just want to use straight up paint, which is something I've considered myself. I feel like if I'm using somewhat of a non-transparent, like solid color, then I'd be able to see the texture for sure. And I've tried a few different options. I can probably show them to you, but I wasn't really satisfied with any of them. So the purpose of this video, at least, is to show you how to make the piece of wood look authentic from a texture point of view. From the finishing point of view, I think I should make a separate video that just focuses on comparing different stains, or maybe even using a pre-stain to help take away these circles. For this video, I'm gonna go with a very dark stain, so that way all we see is the texture, and hopefully we can hide some of this. And because we're going with the dark stain and the dark finish, what we're gonna do is not go beyond this 80. We're just gonna keep it at that. So let me show you a close-up of what this looks like right now, and then we'll go on to the next step, which is the stainless steel little brushes to bring back some of that texture. So guys, not sure if you can tell or if you share the same opinion, but after I've sanded things down, everything here is looking pretty smooth, so we want to bring back some of that texture, and I'm going to do that next. Okay, for my next trick, we're just going to go over this with the stainless steel brush, but the much lighter one. Just going to bring back a little bit of that texture that I took away with the sander. By the way, it's 4:53, just so that you can gauge how much time I've been spending on this and how much time you can expect to spend yourself. By the way, this is a 6-foot piece, so if you're making them longer, you're going to have to double your time. For this little guy, I'm going to put it to 4.5 out of 6 as the setting, so no longer on max, and I'm just going to press lightly in some spots. Really, we're just doing a really quick pass, like don't spend more than 30 seconds per side, not even maybe 5 seconds. Now that it's all dirty, I need to get all of the dust out of the cracks. For this, I'll be using the nylon brush, the thicker one that you can get in the kit, and just go over it pretty fast on the max setting. But anyway, that worked great. Only took a couple of minutes, and now the wood surface really clean. But look, you can see those rings. Those are gonna not be so good later. But it is clean. It is clean, and it's got a lot of texture. Let's pause it right there. I will be setting up a tarp, and I need to actually recharge my battery. Taking a break at 4:57 p.m. Okay guys, so I got my tarp down because I am not a serial killer and I don't want any stains that are massive there. A little bit of glue is okay, but giant dark stains, I don't know, it's too much. Here's my bucket of stain. It's seen better days. This is Verifying Classics, early American, very nice. Let's open her up. Now for this little next piece, I do recommend wearing gloves because this is oil-based and well, it's kind of annoying to wash off. So here's my little rag, and again, the first pass is going to be very light just so that you can see these rings that I've been talking about. Also, remember to always mix up your cans. This can's almost empty, but if it's a brand new can or if it's just been sitting for like, I don't know, a day, just always stir it up before you use it. That way all the gunk, the actual color that's on the bottom, will mix with the liquid on top and you'll get an even distribution. Otherwise, you can end up with really light stuff as you use up the top, and as you get to the bottom, it's just going to be really dark and you'll have a lot of inconsistency. If you want a really light finish, what you do is you first apply your stain and then you take it off almost immediately. Who cares what the instructions say? Who cares about that 15 minutes? Who cares about all that? And the more you rub with a brand new rag, this is a different one now. I should have used a different color, but the more you rub, the more stain you're gonna get off. There's a lot of horizontal lines, but I was adding vertical lines with my axe. So you're gonna end up seeing a lot of these rings. This is what I'm talking about. I'm just gonna go all black. Let's just do it. And with the all black approach, I'm just gonna dump a lot of this stuff on there, and I'm actually gonna let it sit for a little bit. Pro tip, I actually have a rag that's been soaking in the rest of this stuff for a while because, I don't know, it's already absorbed all of it and I don't have to get a new rag and then have the new rag absorb the stuff. No. This way the rag doesn't dry up and you don't have to throw out everything that's on the old rag, and it's already drenched. And if we're going all black, I think this is what we want. This is also why I put the tarp on. Normally you would wait for the color to settle on each side, but I don't know, I'm kind of rushing through this just to show you the process. Okay, now it's really dark, so we just want to let it sit like that for a while. It's 5:12, I don't know, 15 minutes, that's what they recommend. When we're going this dark, I don't even think we care about blotches. But the other thing we can do is just go multiple layers at a time. But if we want to take that approach, we have to wait between layers, and I don't know, don't feel like waiting right now. So now's a good time to mention, if you're going with really light coats and then you wait overnight, like you wipe it all off and then you end up waiting overnight, you'll see that in the morning it's actually going to have quite of a dull color, whereas at night, you know, before you let it sit for too long, it was quite vibrant and oily and alive looking. If you want to seal in that color, you can actually go with your clear coat right away as long as it's dry, or well, you could do more stains, and it's really up to you. The clear coat will bring back the color, but I do feel like the sooner you apply that clear coat, the more rich of a finish you're going to have. So I know I said I'd wait, but I actually don't really feel like waiting. So I just want to show you where I'm at. And it's all really subjective, but you do see those grain patterns. But at the same time, you do see a lot of the axe marks. Let me show you a close-up. What's up, amigos? Okay, it's Saturday now at 10:24 a.m. and after reviewing some of the footage and just thinking about the video as a whole, I realized that I was doing you a bit of a disservice by just stopping at the stain part, and I do need to do the clear coat, just because in the beginning of the video I was talking about the clear coat and the sanding. And well, what kind of human would I be if I just left you empty-handed? So you can see now that it's the next morning, and it's probably looking a little duller than it did last night. Last night it probably looked a lot more rich, and that's what I was talking about. So let me show you up close. And you can see those grain marks, but you know what? Because it's so dark, it's looking pretty solid. I think in either case, we're doing pretty good. I've decided I'll probably do a follow-up video where I'll beat the shit out of this again, and then we can do those repairs later. In the meantime, let's get some clear coat on here. Okay, can you see everything? Great, so here's what we're dealing with. I like to use a matte finish clear coat. This little guy here has got, it's the Verifane Professional Clear 1200 matte. This guy, for some reason, I'm pretty sure it's the same thing, it says all the same words, but it doesn't say 1200 on it anywhere. So it's a little bit confusing, but I think it's all the same thing, just a bigger can on this one. So let's put this away. Next, in the past I've always used foam brushes, but that's when I'm doing really smooth finishes, and because I was too cheap and maybe afraid to waste a bristle brush. The bristle nylon brush, that's your best bet. These work really, really well. The only thing is you have to clean them. So until recently, I didn't even know how to clean these guys properly. But I realized all you have to do is take some of this stuff. Some sort of mineral spirit substitute. Again, all this stuff comes from my local Home Depot. You probably don't want to leave your brushes in here forever, but I've been using them on and off for weeks and they've been doing just fine. As soon as you get that clear coat off of there, we'll do that at the end. You can use them. So right now there's a lot of mineral spirits on here. I'm just going to dry them off. I use solvable mineral spirits. They're great. Check it out, our little Mr. Trusty tool. Very helpful for opening cans. So just like all the other stuff that comes in a can, you're going to want to mix this up because right now as I look at it, it's kind of like, it's dark, but as I mix it up, it starts to get cloudy, and that makes me feel like that's all that little grit that's necessary to give it that matte finish. So Stir it up. So we don't need to put a lot on here. We just need enough to kind of cover it. The more you put on, the longer it'll take to dry. So take a look at this real quick. You can see the one side with clear coat on it. It's very shiny right now, and the other dull side that just has the stain. So as soon as this begins to dry, it's going to get a lot more dull, and we're actually going to sand it a little bit. It's going to look really, really dank, but trust me, it's going to be good. You can trust me, I'm not like the others. Normally you'd want to let one side dry before rotating this over because we don't want any drips. However, if we do get some, you can just sand those out once it's dry enough. So now, because this stuff isn't properly dry yet, I'm just going to spend some time watching for drips and brushing it off. Because gravity is a bitch. It's now 10:37 a.m. on a Saturday. Let's get you a close-up. So as you can see, I got very, very glossy. It's very, very glossy. Now we wait. I am going to turn on a fan to get some air circulating and getting this to get this to dry faster. Okay, so like I was saying before, to clean one of these brushes, you just need some sort of paint thinner or this solvable mineral spirit substitute. I don't know what it's substituting, but it seems to work. Essentially, all I really do is dip the brush in here, swirl it around, let the clear coat drip off of it, and just let it sit in there. Essentially, if the solution is not disturbed, then all of the clear coat will settle to the bottom, and you can actually pour the clean mineral spirits out and keep reusing them. All right, guys, how do you feel about sloppy seconds or sloppy thirds? It's still Saturday, 3:14 p.m. I've waited, what was it, like 10 a.m.? So I've waited now 5 hours or so to get this to dry. And as you can see, I'm comfortably resting myself on it. So the clear coat has officially dried. The problem with clear coat, however, is as soon as you put it on, or literally anything wet, as soon as you put it to a piece of wood, all those little grains are going to stand up like little spikes. I'm sure you've experienced this. So if you leave it the way it is, sure, it looks nice, but what if you ever have to clean these things, especially if it's a mantle that's going to collect a lot of dust, you know, not a beam in the ceiling. Then when you go to clean it with the microfiber, you're going to have a problem that you don't want. Check this out. Look, it's getting stuck. Very difficult to clean. I guess if I rub this long enough, it's gonna eventually give way and get rid of those hairs, but it's not gonna be perfect. At the same time, the color isn't exactly where we want it. I don't mean the color, I actually mean to say the finish. It does look really nice, but if this was a little lighter, you'd see these axe holes, they'd be even darker. So what I'm gonna do is take 400 grit sandpaper. So I've got this roll of 400 grit sandpaper. I got it from Amazon years ago. It's about 10 feet long, and I think it was maybe like $20 or so. The cool thing about this guy is that it's actually sticky. So all I do is take it off and stick it to my hand. Next, I'm just gonna go over the entire surface real quick just to gray it all up. This piece is pretty rough, so I'll need a second piece of sandpaper. The curvature of my hand and the flexibility allows me to get into the nooks and crannies. Check this out. Yeah, you're probably thinking, damn, did I just fuck that up? No. No. We've done a good thing here, because 400 grit sandpaper is very light. All we've done is just add a few surface scuffs. Now let's take our microfiber cloth and see how smooth it is, and also wipe off the dust. Amazing. So that's a lot easier to clean, and I'm going to show you a close-up where you could see all these axe marks are now filled in with a white fine dust, which I think to me just looks like 100-year-old dirt. So it's very cool, and it gives it more texture and complexity, and it just looks great. Well guys, I think we did it, and that takes us to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. I didn't realize it would be an hour-long video, but this is basically as short as I can make it. The entire process, if we do the math, I think took us about 6 hours of work, plus minus some waiting. So narrowing it down to 1 hour with some tips, I think maybe it's going to be worthwhile. I really do hope that you enjoyed this. Like and subscribe for more videos. Questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. Have a good one.